You're listening to Agency Alchemy, a podcast from Advertising Week. Join us as we sit down with top agency executives to uncover the secrets behind their success and explore how they're navigating the ever-evolving advertising landscape. From discussions around innovative strategies and emerging trends to effective leadership conversations, each episode offers invaluable insights into what it takes to thrive in today's evolving marketing world. If you like this podcast, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review on your podcast platform of choice. And if you're looking for more content like this, check out our roster of podcasts available now on the Advertising Week Podcast Network at www.advertisingweek.com/podcasts. Thanks for listening. On today's episode, we're joined by Rob Cherof, founder and president of Rocket Camp. Across a career spanning some of the advertising industry's most respected agencies, Rob has become deeply invested in one of the biggest questions facing the business today. How do we properly develop the next generation of agency talent in a world shaped by hybrid work, AI, and relentless pressure for efficiency? In this conversation, Rob shares how Rocket Camp's philosophy was inspired as much by the culture of summer camp as it was by agency life, and why creating environments where people can experiment, collaborate, and even fail safely has become more important than ever. Rob, welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for coming. You're founder and president of Rocket Camp. For the uninitiated, tell us about Rocket Camp and what you do there.
Okay, Rocket Camp is an independent agency with deep brand experience. We work with a pretty wide variety of clients, but most of the clients focus on, I call them the important decisions. So they work with people's health. We do a lot of work for the CDC, for the Alzheimer's Association. They work with people's careers. We do a thing with a group called WorkSource. That's through the Atlanta Regional Commission. With their money, we work with a community bank here in Atlanta, things like that. And over the years, we've worked with more companies like that. So it's less promotionally oriented, less of those spontaneous purchases and more considered purchases.
You know, through your career, you've spent decades in some of the industry's most iconic agencies.
Yeah.
Now you're investing heavily in early career talent. What are you seeing in today's pipeline that made you feel that like an intervention was necessary, for lack of a better word?
An intervention is a good word. It's a good word. As an industry, I want to state the obvious to me anyway. This is still an industry all about people. We count on them to come up with ideas, to think of things that have not been thought of before. And for the past, at least 10, 20 years, we've been fixated on finding efficiencies. And to some degree, that's been at the expense of growing our talent, getting our talent to work with each other, to feel valued, to know how to handle a tough situation beyond the Zoom call, for example. And I've just taken a great interest in that. Rocket Camp was the camp part of it is all about the experience of going someplace that you want to go to work, doing something beyond what you expected, having more fun doing it, and being proud of it at the end. That was the whole genesis of the agency. The rocket was the big, get people's attention, work together, do the impossible. But the camp was the environment. And I take that to heart and expand it to the industry. So that's how that's where the interest came from. The experiences go beyond that.
Oh, I love that. And that actually works. I mean, to me, just seeing the name is delightful and inviting all at the same time. So it's, it's either that or, you're actually making rockets, which that wasn't my takeaway from it. But
yeah, but get this. Our biggest account is a rocket account, coincidentally. And I've had two jobs in my life. I've worked at summer camp and I've worked in ad agencies. So it's more than just a concept. It really defines what I'm doing here.
Well, the narrative around the industry right now is that agencies are struggling to create space for young talent.
Yeah.
Kind of blows my mind, but nonetheless, that's where we are. Do you feel we're dealing with a hiring problem, a training problem, or some sort of structural issue in how agencies are built today?
Well, I feel like it's structural and it's feeding on itself. It's kind of what expectations have we set within the industry? So I look at this from several vantage points. I run an agency. I've worked at the really big agencies that actually have a pipeline. And I've been involved at the university level. I've been involved with the ad program, the largest ad program in the country at the University of Florida. I've been doing that since the early 2000s. So I see the talent, I see the potential coming in, and then we throw them in the agency world and say, how come they're not loyal? How come they're not learning? How come they don't know what I want them to know? But why would they know it until we show them how it works? Now let's compound that. When we went through COVID, people stopped coming in. Now we're kind of settling in on this hybrid workforce. And then all of a sudden we throw AI into this. We've really lost the opportunity to go over specific situations, to talk about what just happened in that meeting. Why didn't they like that? How could you have gotten them to see it through your eyes instead of the way they saw it? We're just missing a real human dynamic to it. I've been involved with two big learning situations since then. One was working at the Creative Circus. So that was basically a finishing school for creatives. And then I did that for 8 years. And then I picked up right after that with the 4A's Institute for Advanced Advertising Studies. It's a mouthful, I know. But it's basically agencies sending their best and brightest young talent. And they're great. I've seen each year I see another group and they really know how to think, but they need to be molded. They need some nurturing. And that's what when I see where they start and what they can become in just a short time, it gives me great confidence that we do have a great generation coming in.
And what does that process look like? So they go through this 4A's Institute. How different is that from how most agencies onboard and develop talent? What you're seeing is very positive,
Yeah,
I don't want to know the whole secret sauce, but at least a little bit of it.
there's no secret. Come on in the kitchen. I'll show you what we do. Chef's table, if you will. Agencies bring the people in and they generally put them on a team. They give them a supervisor and they learn very specific tasks. They learn how to do those. They learn how to not screw up. We take them, we put them on a team. So there's 20 some odd people each year in the program. We put them on a team with people they've never worked with before. We give them a real assignment and then we ask them to solve the problem and we give them room to make mistakes. And then we bring in subject matter experts every week that they hear talk about how they go about it. Let me give you an example. This year, our client for the 4A's in the Southeast, so that's the program I run. There's several in the country. Our client is Delta Airlines. I can't reveal the exact assignment, but it's a big national assignment for Delta Airlines. And the client briefs them. And then the first speaker we have come in, it was a strategy from BBH talking about how do you unpack the brief. I don't think any agency teaches how to unpack the brief. They get the brief, they go solve it. So now all of a sudden they're building a toolkit. Here's how I go about solving a brief or unpacking it. Before you even get to the answer, let's figure out what the situation is. Let's figure out what the problem is. Okay, so that's step one. Step two, I bring in media people to talk about if everything's media, how do we think about media and stand out? And right down to the napkin on a cocktail napkin on Delta Airlines as a medium. The next week, we brought in a creative director from Wyden and Kennedy, Delta's creative agency. to talk about how do I get to the big idea. And it wasn't like presto magic, I just get there. It was, you got to work hard. You got to go deep to find out what really works. And so every week we have different presenters with really different perspectives. It's not my way, it's not the Wyden way, it's all different ways. And each year I just try to bring in some different, I call them best in class speakers that are relevant to that assignment. And they just hear all these different perspectives. Whereas at the agency, they've got their boss and maybe they have some colleagues who say, well, yeah, can you believe that? Here's how we're doing it. So it's a much broader perspective. And then on top of it, it's hands-on. Now go make something out of that, create a recommendation, bring it to the client, get real client feedback, fix it, and then polish it.
I love that. When a quick question. So, you mentioned each round you're bringing in 20 young professionals. Are they working on this stuff autonomously, or are they working together, or a little bit of both?
Great question. So we'll bring in 20 something. I break them into teams. We'll have 4 or 5 teams. I make sure the team they're on is not their colleagues from their own agency. So we're making them uncomfortable on purpose. They're interdisciplinary. Those teams solve the problem independent of the other teams, but they're not doing it individually. So I'm on a team with 4 or 5 people, and we have to tackle this Delta brief. And last year it was a brief for Coca-Cola. And they hear the inputs, kind of the best practices, but they have to do the application of it. And then they'll present it to the client.
And when did this program start?
I know in the Southeast, it was like over 40 years ago.
Wow.
It's crazy. It's really been going on a long time. I've been doing it for 5 years. But there's a great history, and you tell people about it, they go, oh yeah, I was in that way back when. They tell you the client. And the other thing is they're keeping their day jobs. These are professionals. So I have to bring them in one night a week for 3 hours, and then they meet in person 3 times, each time with the client.
Wow. Well, speaking of the Southeast, Atlanta has become, rather quietly become, I would say, one of the most dynamic marketing hubs in the US. How has Atlanta's mix of indie agencies and cultural influence, and I think global brands as well, shaped the way this program is operating?
That's a really tough question that within the industry we all struggle to answer. We've got terrific Fortune 500 companies based here. The agencies that service those clients aren't all from here. So they're within the market and they're outside of the market. But one of the things that I think has been so interesting, a couple of things really stand out to me. One, because you have outlets for some of the giant agencies, VML, BBDO, and there are others, they're here. You're playing to their standards in any of their agencies. So just because it's an Atlanta office doesn't mean we lowered the standard in any way. I worked on AT&T through BBDO here in Atlanta. We answered to New York and to Atlanta. It's similar with VML and Coke and the Marine Corps. They're playing to national standards. So you get to live in Atlanta. That's a real benefit. And you're playing at a very high standard. So I think that's really a key to the market. The other thing is there's been a gap. So we have these really terrific independent shops that have grown here, and they've done really well. And each one for a different reason. I don't think there's a real pattern, except that you have talent that was brought here to work on these big things, and they kind of move around the market. And so that raises the floor for everybody and the ceiling.
You've said that the goal is to shape the rising generation into the talent we need. What does that talent actually look like in 2026 and perhaps even beyond? What are the skills and mindsets and behaviors, the sort of non-negotiables?
I think for one, this has been really, really impressive to me. Much more diverse in every way. different backgrounds. They didn't all come through the same college programs. It used to be they came from certain schools, they looked alike, their life experience was more similar, much more diverse now. And also in terms of their disciplines, they're a little more, even though they're slotted in certain roles, I think they're more utility players, because this is how I'm seeing it. Someone may come in and they go, I'm a junior strategist, and they're coming in with some creative ideas, and someone else comes in and I'm media, and they're taking a little more strategic bent on the assignment. And you don't get to do that in your agency. It's like, stay in your lane and we get to play a little bit. And what I'm seeing is their thinking is broader. They have to be given permission to apply it, to play. And I think that would really help them out when they go back to their mothership, if you will. They get along. They don't want to, I think years ago, it was this mindset of, I can only win if you lose. It was a zero-sum game, and I think they get along better now. They're collaborating, they're building on each other's ideas. I really like that. And they're really, they can find out anything. And so if they have a question, they're not afraid to search for the answer or get the answer. And now the trick is, okay, you got an answer, now go deeper. And that's what I'm trying to coax them to do, to get past the obvious answer, because otherwise everything's going to look alike. And they're going, but I got the answer already. I go, well, maybe. Let's see how far you can push it. I think our world has kind of shut that down a little bit, but this is a class. We can really go for it.
Oh, absolutely. I'd be remiss not to ask you your thoughts on the role that AI plays in some of this. How do you feel about it? How do these professionals feel about it? Is this something that you're going over along the way, or is it just kind of looming in the background like it is for many of us?
It's both. Really interesting. So we had a session, and so I'm speaking to this both in terms of the class and the agent, and where I've worked and do work. We had a session Wednesday night, and I said, all right, let's see where you are so far. And they pulled up like basically a digital whiteboard of all their thinking. It was so much information. There was so much information. They went back, they double sourced it, they validated it. So what are you concluding? We're not there yet. It's like they went to Costco and they unloaded the car and all the food's on the dining room table, but they haven't cooked yet. So I think AI is getting them all the ingredients, and it can facilitate their thinking, but it can't do the thinking for them. And I'm finding that too, just in my work. I'll use Claude for some things. I could go fast, but then I have to go back and really look at the nuance. It's like, well, that's not really what I meant. You kind of missed key points here. And so I have to redirect it. So we can't forget the critical thinking of the people, and we need someone to challenge it, and not just accept it. So AI is here. It's going to get better and better. But people are here and they need to get better and better. I'm just such a believer. You can't have one without the other, not in this world.
Stepping back, both as an agency leader and as an educator, what would you change, if anything, about the traditional agency model if you were rebuilding it specifically to develop and retain the next generation of talent?
Wow, you should have said that one in advance. That's deep. Here's the deal. I think we need to give younger talent more at bats. We need to be a little more, we need to let them go. We need to let them make mistakes and we're cautious. A client asks for this, we have to give them this. So we'll give it to them. Maybe we'll give it to them in 3 flavors, but we have to give them this. And, in my artificial world, which is the class, we just make it up. I'm giving them room to just play and get it wrong, and then we can redirect and get it right. Now, what does that mean? The client agency relationship has to be stronger. The new person needs to have a mentor or mentors at the agency who are vested in nurturing them. And it's a little bit of old school where we went to go work someplace and we stayed for a little bit and they trained us and they called time out and they said, let's go over some important concepts, not creative campaign concepts, but work concepts. And I think a lot of that has been sacrificed in the name of efficiency right now. And I think it's a shame because in the short term, it looks good. In the long term, we're going to lose some real skills, or we're not going to develop skills. We won't lose them. We just won't build them. What I'm finding is they thrive on building the skills. It's interesting. When we organize the class, and then I talk to my counterparts around the country. So this is in Southern California, in Minneapolis, in Chicago. They'll talk about, yeah, but we can't get people to sign up because they don't want to put in all the hours, or they're already busy, they're having a full day. And my experience has been very different. This is one of those, if you expect more from them, they'll give you more. And if they give you more, then it's better for them. And so my thing is, let's push them, but let's give them the tools for them to succeed when we push them. And they respond. They surprise themselves, which is the real fun of it, to see them go, I didn't know I could do that, or we could do that. It's a really good feeling.
Very cool. Well, this has been amazing. If one wanted to find out more about yourself or about Rocket Camp, where to go?
You'd go to rocketcamp.com, or you'd find me on LinkedIn, Rob Sheroff, Cherof, or you just talk to one of the many people I've met along the way, because I'll let them speak for me too.
Excellent. Well, Rob, this has been absolutely amazing to talk to you about this. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.